What would you do if the sky suddenly filled with objects that defied every law of physics you thought you understood? Not the Hollywood spectacle of massive ships casting shadows over cities, but something far more unsettling. Geometric forms that hung motionless in the atmosphere, their surfaces reflecting light in ways that hurt your eyes to look at directly. It's Tuesday morning, September 24th, 2025, and you're checking your phone over coffee when the first reports begin trickling through social media. A few grainy videos from Munich show what people are calling weather balloons or military exercises. The objects, roughly pyramid shaped but somehow folded in on themselves, hover at various altitudes, completely silent. They don't move. They don't respond to aircraft circling them. They simply exist as if someone has placed impossible sculptures in the sky. By noon, there are hundreds of them across German airspace. By evening, they span the entire European continent. The government issues calm statements about atmospheric phenomena under investigation. The military scrambles jets that can approach but never quite reach the objects. Their instruments fail at a precise distance, forcing pilots to turn back with stories of vertigo and electrical malfunctions. What would you do when you realize that humanity's first contact with the unknown isn't going to be a dramatic arrival, but this slow, creeping certainty that everything has already changed and nobody understands what it means?
The silence is what Marcus Weber notices first as he steps outside his apartment in Frankfurt's West End district. Not the absence of sound. The city still breathes with its usual rhythm of early commuters and delivery trucks, but something deeper. The quality of silence between the familiar noises has shifted, as if the air itself is holding its breath. Marcus has worked as a correspondent for ZDF for 15 years. He's covered refugee crises, terrorist attacks, and political upheavals across Europe. He knows the feeling of a story brewing beneath the surface, that electric tension when events are about to cascade beyond anyone's control. This morning feels like standing on the edge of that cascade. His phone buzzes constantly with messages from colleagues, friends, and family, everyone asking the same questions. Are you seeing this? What do you think they are? Why isn't the government saying more? He scrolls through the videos that have multiplied overnight. Thousands of them now, from every major city across Europe. The objects haven't moved. Not a single degree of rotation, not an inch of drift. They hang in the atmosphere like they've been there forever, waiting for humans to notice. The ZDF newsroom buzzes with controlled chaos when Marcus arrives. Assignment editors juggle phone calls while technical staff struggle with equipment that's been experiencing intermittent failures since yesterday evening. The strange part isn't that their broadcast equipment is glitching, it's the pattern of the failures. Satellite uplinks cut out at precise intervals. Digital systems reset themselves without explanation. Analog equipment, however, works perfectly fine. Weber, Klaus Brenner, waves him over to a wall of monitors displaying feeds from across Europe. I need you to make sense of this. We've got objects over Berlin, Hamburg, Munich, Cologne, hell, every major population center. NATO is not talking. Brussels is in an emergency session, but they're not releasing statements. And look at this. Klaus points to a live feed from a traffic camera in downtown Berlin. The image shows normal street activity, pedestrians, cars, buses, but overlaying all, clearly visible in the sky, hangs one of the geometric forms. It's roughly the size of a city block, its surfaces seeming to fold in on themselves in ways that Marcus's eyes water if he looks too long. The weird thing is, Klaus continues, is that people are going about their business. Look at them. Some are taking pictures, sure, but mostly they're just living their lives, going to work, shopping, like giant alien artifacts appearing overnight is just Tuesday. Marcus studies the feed. Klaus is right. There should be mass panic, military cordons, evacuation orders. Instead, he sees a woman walking her dog, pausing to look up at the impossible object, then continuing on as if she's decided it's not her problem to solve. What are we calling them? Marcus asks. Officially, atmospheric anomalies under investigation. Unofficially, the internet settled on visitors. Social media is exploding with theories. Everything from secret military projects to elaborate hoaxes to, well, aliens. Marcus pulls up Twitter on his phone. The trending hashtags tell their own story. Hashtag Visitors Europe. Hashtag Silent Skies. Hashtag What Are They? But mixed in with the speculation and fear are hundreds of posts about daily life continuing. People posting lunch photos with the objects visible in the background. Commuters complaining about delayed trains. Delays that have nothing to do with the visitors. A surreal normalcy that feels more unsettling than outright panic would be. I want you on the street, Marcus. Not just reporting what we can see, but how people are responding. This isn't a normal news event, Weber. The story isn't just what's in the sky, it's what's happening down here while we all pretend we can process the impossible. As Marcus heads back out into Frankfurt streets, he notices something Klaus mentioned but that hadn't fully registered. His digital recorder keeps cutting out at irregular intervals, but the analog tape recorder he grabbed from the supply closet works perfectly fine. His smartphone GPS shows his location is unavailable, but the physical street signs are right where they always have been. Visitors aren't just hanging in the sky, he realizes. They're already changing the world in ways nobody wants to admit yet. By Wednesday morning, the carefully maintained calm begins to fracture. Marcus arrives at the newsroom to find Klaus pacing in front of the monitors, his usual composed demeanor cracking. We're getting reports of communication failures across the continent, Klaus says without preamble. Not total blackouts, that would be too obvious. Selective failures. GPS satellites are providing intermittent data. Cell towers are working at maybe 60% capacity. Internet backbone connections keep dropping and restoring themselves. Marcus pours coffee from the pot that's been brewing since before dawn. Around him, the newsroom operates on an energy he's never experienced. Part adrenaline, part professional excitement, part growing unease. Any pattern to the failures? That's the thing. There doesn't seem to be one. A military base in northern Germany reports complete communication blackout for 6 hours yesterday. Then everything comes back online perfectly. Meanwhile, a rural village in Bavaria has perfect internet, but their landlines went dead. And look at this. Klaus hands him a printed email. Printed because their email servers have been unreliable since yesterday afternoon. The message is from Sarah Chen, a reporter Marcus knows at BBC London. Her words are stark. Marcus, if you get this, we're seeing the same patterns here. The objects appeared simultaneously across all of Britain yesterday. Government sources are claiming atmospheric research equipment. But military contacts are spooked. Something is mapping our communication networks. Don't trust digital transmission. Use couriers when possible. S. Couriers, Marcus repeats, like it's 1985. Print journalism is making a comeback, Klaus says grimly. Physical newspapers, radio broadcasts, landline phones, anything that doesn't require satellite relay or digital processing seems to work normally. It's as if he pauses, struggling to articulate something that has no precedent. It's as if something is learning our systems by interfering with them. Marcus spends the morning on the streets of Frankfurt.
But the story isn't in the sky anymore. It's in the gradual realization that the infrastructure everyone takes for granted is becoming unreliable. ATMs dispense cash intermittently. Credit card systems work sometimes and fail without warning. The Frankfurt Stock Exchange closed early yesterday due to technical difficulties and remains closed today. At a small cafe in Sachsenhausen, he interviews Petra Muller, a software engineer who's been documenting the failures on a paper notebook. Her laptop crashed too many times to trust. It's not random, she insists, showing him pages of handwritten data. I've been tracking when systems fail and when they work. There's a pattern, but it's not based on time or geography. It's based on complexity and interconnectedness. The more sophisticated the system, the more likely it is to malfunction. Simple systems, mechanical cash registers, analog radios, landline phones, work perfectly. What does that suggest to you? Marcus asks, his analog tape recorder spinning steadily. That something is systematically probing our technology, learning what connects to what, which systems are critical, which ones control others, like someone doing reconnaissance before. She trails off. Before what? Before deciding what to shut down permanently. Marcus returns to find the ZDF building buzzing with urgent energy. Klaus meets him at the elevator with news that changes everything. We just got word from Berlin. Chancellor Burba is making an emergency address at 8 p.m. tonight. And, Marcus, they're doing it on radio. No television broadcast, no streaming, just old-fashioned radio waves. The implications sink in slowly. If the German government is reverting to 1940s communication technology, they know something they're not telling the public. Marcus spends the afternoon gathering reactions from ordinary citizens. The responses range from denial to creeping fear to angry frustration. But what strikes him most is how quickly people are adapting. Shop owners switching back to mechanical cash registers. Teenagers rediscovering face-to-face conversation. Families gathering around old radio sets they hadn't touched in years. Humanity is already changing its behavior, he realizes, not in response to direct contact with the visitors, but in response to the subtle ways the visitors are reshaping the technological landscape. It's a kind of involuntary evolution occurring in real time. As evening approaches and radio technicians across Germany prepare for the Chancellor's address, Marcus wonders what they'll learn tonight. But more unsettling is the question of what the visitors are learning about humanity while they systematically probe every digital connection that holds modern civilization together.
The static crackles through every radio in Germany at exactly 8 p.m. as Chancellor Weber's voice fills the electromagnetic spectrum. Marcus listens from the ZDF newsroom alongside Klaus and a dozen other staff members, all gathered around an ancient Grindig radio that someone retrieved from a basement storage room. Citizens of Germany and our friends across Europe, the Chancellor begins, her voice carrying the weight of someone who has been awake for 3 days straight. I speak to you tonight through radio waves because it has become clear that our digital communication networks are being systematically compromised by the objects currently occupying European airspace. The admission sends a chill through the newsroom. This is the first official acknowledgement that the visitors are actively interfering with human technology. I want to be clear about what we know and what we do not know. We know these objects appeared simultaneously across Europe on Tuesday morning. We know they are not weather phenomena, not military exercises, and not human in origin.
We know they are actively scanning our digital infrastructure in ways our best scientists cannot fully understand. Klaus scribbles notes on paper. Their digital recording systems had been unreliable all day. Around Germany, Marcus imagines millions of people gathered around radios, many of them devices that haven't been used in years. What we do not know is their purpose, their origin, or their intentions. We do not know why they have chosen Europe as their initial point of contact. We do not know how long they will remain. The Chancellor's voice wavers slightly, and Marcus catches something that makes his blood run cold. She said initial point of contact. That implies knowledge of a larger pattern. I have been in communication with European Union leadership, NATO command, and world leaders throughout this crisis. Similar objects have appeared over major population centers across 6 continents. This is not a European phenomenon. This is global. The room falls silent, except for the radio's gentle static. Global, Marcus thinks. About the communication failures, the systematic probing of infrastructure. If this is happening worldwide, then the scale is beyond anything human civilization has ever faced. Effective immediately, Germany is implementing Protocol 7, a return to analog communication systems for all critical infrastructure. Banks will operate using manual processing. Transportation systems will rely on radio coordination. Emergency services will use landline networks. Protocol 7. Marcus has never heard of it, but Klaus is nodding grimly. Cold War contingency planning, he whispers. In case of electromagnetic pulse or nuclear attack, they're treating this like warfare. Citizens are advised to maintain supplies of food, water, and medication for a minimum of 2 weeks. This is precautionary only. Supply chains remain functional, but we are preparing for various scenarios. Various scenarios. The euphemism hangs in the air like a threat. I want to address the rumors and speculations circulating on social media and private communications. We have not made contact with these objects. They have not responded to any form of communication we have attempted. Military aircraft have been unable to approach within 2 kilometers due to equipment failures. These objects appear to be observing us, but we have no information about their intentions. The Chancellor pauses, and in that silence, Marcus hears something that chills him more than anything she said. Fear. Raw, honest fear from someone who has access to classified information. To our European neighbors and allies worldwide, we are stronger together than separately. We are sharing all information freely. We are coordinating our responses. Humanity faces this unknown together. Unknown. Not challenge or situation or any other political euphemism. Unknown. Finally, I want to address speculation about government preparations. Yes, we are implementing contingency plans. Yes, we are preparing for various scenarios. But I want to be absolutely clear. We are not abandoning our citizens. We are not preparing to surrender or flee. We are preparing to endure, to understand, and to respond appropriately when we have enough information to do so. The speech continues for another 10 minutes, covering practical matters, which radio frequencies to monitor, how modified banking systems will work, coordination with local authorities. But Marcus barely hears the details. His mind is processing the subtext. The German government, with access to intelligence from across the globe, is preparing for the collapse of digital civilization. After the speech ends, Klaus immediately starts organizing coverage assignments. Weber, I want you focusing on how people are adapting. The real story isn't what the government is saying, it's how ordinary citizens are responding to the realization that their technology can't be trusted. As Marcus heads out into Frankfurt's even streets, he notices how different the city sounds. Fewer cars. GPS navigation systems are unreliable. More voices, people talking to each other instead of staring at phones. The glow from windows has changed too, as people switch from LED screens to older forms of lighting. The visitors still hang motionless in the sky, their geometric forms clearly visible against the dark clouds gathering over the city. But Marcus realizes they are no longer the story. The story is how quickly humanity is reverting to pre-digital behaviors, how rapidly the modern world is adapting to function without the technology it depends on. It's only been 3 days since the visitors appeared. Already the world is becoming something different. What will it look like in 3 weeks?
Thursday morning brings the first signs of economic transformation. Marcus walks through Frankfurt's financial district, passing the European Central Bank building where analog clocks have replaced digital displays, and sees the future of commerce taking shape in real time. Outside Deutsche Bank, he encounters Anna Richter, a branch manager who's become an unwitting expert in pre-digital banking. She's explaining to a growing line of customers why transactions are taking longer, why they need physical identification, why account balances must be verified through phone calls to manual ledger systems. We're basically operating like it's 1975, she tells Marcus, stepping aside from the crowd. Everything has to be verified through analog systems, paper forms, phone calls to human operators, physical signature verification. But you know what's strange? It's working. It's slower, but it's working. Marcus surveys the scene. Instead of the frustrated chaos he expected, he sees people adapting with remarkable speed. Customers are bringing books to read while waiting in longer lines. Neighbors are sharing information about which services are working reliably. Small businesses are returning to cash transactions and handwritten receipts. The surprising thing, Anna continues, is how quickly people are remembering skills they haven't used in decades. Elderly customers are helping younger ones navigate paper-based systems. People are calculating tips in their heads instead of using phone apps. It's like watching society collectively remember how to function without digital assistance. The economic adaptations extend beyond banking. At Kleinmarkthalle, Frankfurt's traditional market hall, vendors report surge in customers. When grocery store systems go down randomly, people come here, explains Josef Kraus, who sold fresh produce at the same stall for 30 years. We never use digital systems. Cash, conversation, quality products, that still works perfectly. But the adaptations reveal deeper structural vulnerabilities. Marcus interviews Dr. Elizabeth Hoffman, an economist at Goethe University, who's been documenting the cascading effects of digital systems failures. When those systems become unreliable, trust erodes quickly. We're seeing a rapid shift towards tangible value stores, cash, precious metals, physical goods, but also towards local networks that don't depend on digital verification. Local networks, neighborhood-level resource sharing, barter systems, local currencies based on known individuals rather than digital accounts. Communities are forming their own economic circles because they can't trust the larger digital infrastructure. Marcus spends the afternoon documenting these emerging microeconomies. In Sachsenhausen, he finds a group of neighbors who've organized a resource-sharing network using a hand-drawn map and paper notebooks. Families contribute skills, cooking, childcare, electrical work, and receive credits they can exchange for other services. We started this because the apps for sharing services kept crashing, explains Maria Santos, a graphic designer who's become the network's coordinator.
But we realize this works better anyway. You know your neighbors, you can see the quality of their work, there's accountability that digital platforms never provided. The implications extend beyond local adaptation. As Marcus interviews people throughout the day, he hears the same themes repeatedly: increased face-to-face interaction, reliance on personal relationships, skepticism toward digital solutions. The visitors haven't attacked humanity directly, but they've created conditions that are fundamentally altering social and economic structures. Late in the afternoon, he receives a message through the analog communication network ZDF has established, a courier system using motorcycles and radio operators. Klaus wants him back at the station for urgent news from Berlin. When he returns, he finds the newsroom transformed into something resembling a World War II operations center. Maps with pins, handwritten status boards, people coordinating through landline phones and radio sets. NATO intelligence briefing just came through, Klaus says immediately. The economic disruption isn't accidental. Analysis suggests the pattern of digital failures is designed to force transition to analog systems. But Marcus, the scary part isn't that they're disrupting our technology. It's that they seem to be studying how we adapt. Studying our adaptation? The failures are becoming more sophisticated. As soon as we develop workarounds for one type of disruption, they introduce different types, like they're running experiments on human behavioral flexibility. Marcus thinks about the conversations he's had today. The speed of adaptation, the emergence of new social structures, the rapid shift in economic behaviors. If the visitors are studying humanity's adaptability, they're getting a comprehensive education. As night falls over Frankfurt and the geometric forms continue their silent vigil above the city, Marcus wonders what the final exam will look like.
By Friday morning, the unofficial information networks have evolved into something resembling an underground resistance movement, not fighting the visitors directly, but maintaining human civilization despite their interference. Marcus meets Thomas Bergman at a seemingly ordinary repair shop in Frankfurt's Norden district. Thomas worked in IT security before the visitors arrived. Now he's become a coordinator for what people are calling the Analog Network, a citywide system for sharing reliable information without digital infrastructure. "Come on, I'll show you something," Thomas says, leading Marcus through the repair shop into a back room. What he sees there challenges everything he thought he understood about how quickly human society can transform. The room buzzes with activity that could have come from a World War II resistance film. People hunched over radio equipment, others coordinating with bicycle messengers, hand-drawn maps covering the walls with colored pins marking reliable communication nodes across the city. But this isn't historical reenactment. It's improvised infrastructure created in less than a week. We realized that if digital systems couldn't be trusted, we needed physical alternatives, but not just alternatives, better alternatives, systems that are more resilient, more personal, more human. The network has evolved beyond simple message passing. Marcus learns about encrypted analog communications using voice coding techniques developed during the Cold War, physical bulletin boards in public spaces where people post local information and resource availability, courier routes that connect neighborhoods across the city, operated by volunteers with motorcycles and bicycles. The interesting thing, says Sarah Miller, a former social media manager who now coordinates neighborhood information hubs, is how much more accurate information is when it travels through human networks. Digital systems spread misinformation at light speed, but when information passes person to person, there's natural verification and context. Marcus spends the morning following one of the courier routes, riding with Jakob, a 25-year-old who switched from delivering food to delivering news.
They travel through the city carrying handwritten messages, printed bulletins, and small packages containing analog devices. Old radios, mechanical calculators, even typewriter ribbons that have become valuable commodities. People are remembering skills they didn't know they had, Jakob says as they navigate through the city center. My grandmother taught me Morse code last week. My neighbor is teaching kids how to use slide rules. We're not going backward. We're recovering capabilities that got lost when everything went digital. At each stop, Marcus witnesses communities that have transformed themselves in days. Apartment buildings where residents have organized floor-by-floor communication systems using intercom networks and printed schedules. Schools that have switched to chalkboards and paper textbooks, with teachers rediscovering methods they hadn't used in years. Businesses operating through face-to-face coordination and written agreements. But the most striking change is psychological. People are more present, more engaged with their immediate physical environment. Without smartphones constantly demanding attention, social interactions have intensified. Parents are talking with their children. Strangers are making eye contact. The social fabric seems to be rewoven in real time. It's not all positive, admits Dr. Peter Snyder, a sociologist at Frankfurt University, who's been documenting the social changes. Marcus interviews him at his office, where students now turn in handwritten papers and research using physical books. We're seeing increased anxiety in people who are deeply dependent on digital systems. Some individuals are struggling to adapt. There's also increased social tension as communities become more insular. Social tension? When you depend on local networks instead of global systems, community boundaries become more important. We're seeing increased suspicion of outsiders, stronger local identity formation, sometimes exclusion of people who don't fit established social patterns. Digital systems were anonymous and broadly accessible. Analog systems are personal and require social integration. As Marcus reflects on this, he realizes the visitors had accomplished something no human authority ever could. They forced humanity to rapidly evolve its social and technological systems, not through direct control, but by making the digital infrastructure unreliable enough that alternatives became necessary. Late Friday afternoon, he receives an urgent message through the analog network. Reports of new activity from the visitors. Not movement, they still hang motionless in the sky, but something else, ground-based phenomena that suggest the observation phase might be ending. Racing back to the ZDF station through streets that now buzz with human conversation instead of digital device notifications, Marcus wonders if humanity's crash course in analog adaptation has been preparation for something more direct. What would you do if you discovered that everything that has happened so far has been an entrance exam?
The call comes through ZDF's emergency radio network at 3:47 a.m. Saturday morning. Marcus rolls out of bed in his apartment, instantly awake with the professional alertness that comes from years of breaking news responses. But nothing in his career has prepared for Klaus's words crackling through the analog radio beside his bed. All staff to the station immediately. We have confirmed reports of ground contact. This is not a drill. Ground contact. The words Marcus never quite believed he'd hear in his lifetime hit him like ice water. He's dressed and out the door in minutes, pedaling through Frankfurt's pre-dawn streets on the bicycle he's been using since GPS navigation became unreliable. The city feels different at this hour. Not just quiet, transformed. Streetlights flicker intermittently, not from power failures, but from some kind of systematic interference. The geometric forms in the sky, barely visible against the stars, seem somehow larger, more present, as if they're preparing to extend their influence downward. The ZDF building buzzes with controlled chaos. Klaus meets Marcus at the entrance with a thermos of coffee and a grim expression that speaks volumes before he says a word.
Multiple confirmed sightings across Germany: Stuttgart, Hamburg, Dresden, and here in Frankfurt. Not the visitors themselves, something else. Ground-based artifacts. Geometric structures that appeared overnight in specific locations. They rushed to the newsroom where analog communication equipment has been working around the clock. On the main table, someone has spread out a large paper map of Germany with red pins marking the reported locations. The pattern makes Marcus's stomach tighten with unease. All the sites have something in common, explains Isabella Chen, ZDF's senior correspondent who's been coordinating information gathering through the analog network. They all feel all the sites have something in common, explains Isabella Chen, ZDF's senior correspondent who's been coordinating information gathering through the analog network. They all appear near major infrastructure nodes: power substations, telecommunications hubs, transportation centers, but not randomly, only at locations that service multiple critical systems simultaneously. Marcus studies the map. Each red pin represents a spot where multiple infrastructure networks intercept, the kind of locations that, if compromised, could cascade failures across entire regions. What do they look like, he asks. Isabella plays an audio recording received through radio relay from their correspondent in Stuttgart. The object appears to be made of the same material as the aerial visitors, but smaller, roughly the size of a shipping container. It's partially embedded in the ground as if it materialized there rather than landing. The surface reflects light in that same impossible way that hurts to observe directly. But this one is emitting some kind of field effect. Field effect.
Electronic devices stop working within approximately 50 meters. Not failure, complete shutdown. But analog systems work normally, even at close proximity. It's like a bubble of technological silence around each site. Klaus hands Marcus a handwritten assignment sheet. I want you at the Frankfurt site, industrial area near the main electrical substation. But Marcus, his voice carries unusual weight, be careful about what you report. We're getting indications that panic could be worse than the actual phenomena. People are adapting well to gradual change, but sudden shocks could trigger social breakdown. Marcus understands. After 6 days of systematic digital interference, German society has found its rhythm with analog alternatives. Panic now could destroy the remarkable community networks that have emerged. The ride to the industrial district takes him through neighborhoods that have become almost village-like in their self-organization. Early risers tend small gardens that have sprouted in parks and empty lots. Neighbors coordinate through handwritten schedules posted on building entrance boards. Children play street games that had disappeared for decades, while parents gather in small groups, sharing coffee and conversation that digital distractions never allowed. The Frankfurt artifact site is immediately recognizable from 3 blocks away. A cordon of police vehicles, the analog radio-equipped models that still function reliably, surrounds an area where the streetlights have gone dark. But it's not ordinary darkness. It's the absence of electronic illumination of any kind, creating a pocket of pre-industrial night in the middle of an urban landscape. Marcus approaches the police perimeter and finds Officer Sandra Weber, who's been documenting the scene using pencil and paper. Appeared sometime after 2 a.m., she explains. Neighbors reported a brief humming sound, then silence. No explosion, no impact, no dramatic arrival. When the first patrol arrived, their car systems shut down at this exact line. She points to a precise circular boundary marked with traffic cones. Everything electronic stops working past that point. Radio, flashlights, even digital watches. Beyond the electronic dead zone, Marcus sees the artifact itself.
Like its airborne counterparts, it defies easy description. The surface seems to fold in on itself geometrically, creating optical effects that make his eyes water if he looks directly at it. But unlike the aerial visitors, this one pulses with a barely perceptible rhythm, like a slow heartbeat. Any activity? Marcus asks. That's the strange part, Officer Weather says. It's not just sitting there, it's doing something to the infrastructure. The power substation hasn't failed, but it's running at about 70% capacity. Telecommunications equipment is functioning, but routing differently, like it's being optimized. Optimized. Traffic flows better through the area now. Power distribution is more efficient. Water pressure has actually improved in the surrounding neighborhoods. Whatever it's doing to our infrastructure, it's making it work better, not worse. Marcus spends the morning interviewing residents and officials. The pattern that emerges challenges every assumption about invasion or attack. The artifacts aren't destroying human infrastructure, they're integrating with it, improving it in ways that human engineers hadn't achieved. As noon approaches, Marcus receives a radio message that changes everything. Similar artifacts have appeared worldwide, always near infrastructure nodes, always creating the same electromagnetic dead zones while simultaneously optimizing the systems they touch. Standing at the edge of the electronic silence, watching the impossible object pulse with its alien rhythm, Marcus realizes that humanity has been asking the wrong questions. The visitors aren't invading Earth, they're retrofitting it. But for what purpose?
Saturday afternoon brings reports that force Marcus to reconsider everything he thought he understood about invasion, resistance, and human agency. The artifacts aren't just optimizing infrastructure, they're learning how to integrate with human systems in ways that benefit both species. He returns to ZDF to find Klaus coordinating with correspondents across Europe through an analog network that now rivals any digital system for efficiency and reliability. The newsroom has become a functioning nerve center, using technologies that were obsolete 20 years ago, but proved more resilient than anything that came after. Update from our people at all 12 German sites, Klaus reports immediately. The pattern is consistent everywhere. The artifacts don't damage existing infrastructure. They enhance it. Power grids are running more efficiently. Water treatment systems are processing at higher capacity with lower energy consumption. Transportation networks are experiencing reduced congestion. Reduced congestion? Traffic flows more smoothly near the artifact sites. Public transportation runs more punctually. Even bicycle traffic moves more efficiently through those areas. It's like the artifacts are optimizing human movement patterns. Isabella Chen joins them with handwritten notes from international correspondents. Same phenomena worldwide. London, Paris, Tokyo, New York. Everywhere the artifacts appear, local infrastructure performance improves. But Marcus, there's something else. We're getting reports that people living near the artifact sites are experiencing changes. What kind of changes? Better health, improved sleep, enhanced mental clarity, stress levels dropping significantly. It's subtle but consistent across all sites. The electromagnetic dead zones seem to have positive biological effects on humans. Marcus thinks about his morning at the Frankfurt site. He had felt more alert, more focused during his hours there. He'd attributed it to professional adrenaline, but maybe there was another explanation. There's more, Isabella continues. Sociological data from the artifact neighborhoods shows accelerated community formation. People are cooperating more effectively, sharing resources more willingly, resolving conflicts more peacefully. The areas around the artifacts are becoming models of human social organization. Klaus leans back in his chair, running his hands through his hair. So, let me understand this.
The visitors disable our digital systems, forcing us to develop analog alternatives and strengthen human social networks. Then they place artifacts that optimize our infrastructure and improve human health and social cooperation? This doesn't sound like invasion. It sounds like Marcus pauses, struggling to articulate a concept that has no historical precedent. It sounds like intervention, like someone is solving problems we didn't realize we had, or problems we were creating for ourselves, Isabella adds quietly. The afternoon brings Marcus back to the Frankfurt artifact site, but this time he comes prepared to observe more than just the technology. He brings a notebook, a mechanical watch, and his grandfather's analog camera, tools for documenting whatever is happening that digital systems can't capture. The neighborhood around the artifact has transformed visibly since morning. Not just the absence of electronic noise, but the presence of human activity that seems more purposeful, more connected. Children play elaborately cooperative games. Adults engage in conversations that last longer and go deeper than the brief digital interactions that dominated social life just a week ago. People work together on projects. Community gardens, shared cooking facilities, informal schools where adults teach practical skills to children. It's like the electronic interference created space for human connection, explains Dr. Emma Fisher, a psychiatrist who lives 3 blocks from the artifact. She's been documenting the psychological changes in her neighborhood. Do you find the artifact threatening? I should. Everything in my professional training tells me that unknown phenomena should create anxiety, but being near it feels calming, like background stress I didn't realize I was carrying has been lifted. Marcus spends hours documenting life in the artifact's influence zone. What he finds challenges every narrative about alien contact he's ever encountered. This isn't conquest or destruction. It's not even classic first contact, where 2 species meet as equals and negotiate. This is more like treatment, like an advanced species identifying systemic problems in human civilization and implementing solutions without asking permission. The implications are staggering. If the visitors can optimize infrastructure and improve human health and social cooperation simply by their presence, what does that say about the problems inherent in human technological development? What does that say about the species that can solve those problems so effortlessly? As evening approaches, Marcus walks the boundary between the electronic dead zone and normal city life. On one side, people check phones, navigate with GPS, live surrounded by digital noise. On the other side, people talk face to face, navigate by landmarks, live in immediate presence with their environment. Both sides are human, but one side seems more fully human than the other. Standing at that boundary, Marcus faces a question that journalism school never prepared him for.
Sunday morning brings Marcus to a realization that will change how he understands his role as a journalist. The story isn't about the visitors anymore. It's about humanity's response to discovering that their civilization has been systematically improved by an intelligence they never knew existed. The ZDF building buzzes with unprecedented activity for a Sunday morning. Klaus has established round-the-clock coordination with news organizations across Europe, using the analog network that has proven more reliable than any digital system ever was. The picture emerging from this human-powered information network reveals a transformation happening too quickly for anyone to fully comprehend. Reports from every artifact site across Europe, Klaus tells Marcus immediately upon his arrival, the pattern is accelerating.
Infrastructure optimization is expanding beyond the immediate artifact zones. Power grids are self-organizing into more efficient configurations. Transportation systems are routing with mathematical precision that our best AI systems never achieved. Water treatment plants are purifying at levels that exceed environmental requirements. Marcus pours coffee from the perpetual pot that has become the newsroom's social center since digital systems became unreliable. Around him, people coordinate complex information gathering through methods that would have seemed primitive a week ago, but now seem elegant in their simplicity and reliability. But the human changes are what's really remarkable, Isabella adds, joining their conversation with fresh reports from field correspondents. We're documenting psychological and social transformations that would normally take generations. Communities near the artifact sites are developing conflict resolution methods that professional mediators struggle to achieve. Educational cooperation between age groups that sociologists had never observed. Economic sharing systems that function without formal contracts or enforcement. Marcus reviews the handwritten reports spread across the table. Each account describes the same phenomenon. Humans living near the artifacts are becoming more cooperative, more creative, more emotionally stable. Not through coercion or control, but through the removal of environmental stressors they didn't realize were affecting them. It's like the artifacts are creating optimal conditions for human social development, not changing us directly, but removing the barriers that prevent us from being our best selves. That's the disturbing part, Klaus says quietly. If removing electronic interference can cause these improvements in human behavior, what does that say about the environment we've been living in? What does that say about the technology we thought was helping us? Marcus spends Sunday documenting life in multiple artifact zones across Frankfurt. Each site tells the same story. Humans rediscovering capabilities and social connections that digital civilization had somehow disrupted. Children learning faster when taught through direct interaction rather than screen-mediated education. Adults solving complex problems through face-to-face collaboration that digital tools had made more difficult rather than easier. At the Sachsenhausen artifact site, he interviews Dr. Maria Santos, a neuroscientist who's been studying the cognitive changes in artifact zone residents. The electromagnetic fields from our digital devices create constant low-level stress responses in human brains. We adapted to it, but it was never optimal for human cognitive function. The artifacts don't just eliminate electronic interference, they create an electromagnetic environment that enhances human neural processing. Enhanced how? Better memory formation? Improved pattern recognition? Increased emotional regulation? The human brain evolved in a natural electromagnetic environment. Digital technology created an artificial environment that we functioned in, but not one we thrived in. The implications cascade through Marcus's understanding like dominoes falling. If humanity has been developing technology that interfered with human biological and social optimization, then the visitors aren't invading, they're conducting a species-level intervention. Sunday evening brings reports that change everything again. The artifacts have begun communicating, not with humans directly, but with each other. Synchronized pulses visible to the naked eye, coordinated electromagnetic patterns detectable by analog radio equipment. The worldwide network of artifacts is operating as a single system, implementing what appears to be a planetary infrastructure upgrade. Klaus gathers the newsroom staff around the radio equipment as reports come in from correspondents across Europe. Each artifact is pulsing in rhythm with all the others. The optimization effects are spreading beyond the immediate zones.
Electrical grids across entire countries are reorganizing themselves for maximum efficiency. Transportation networks are self-coordinating to eliminate congestion. Water treatment systems are achieving purification levels that exceed any human engineering. It's like watching the planet's infrastructure become intelligent. Not replacing human systems, but making them work the way they should have worked all along. As Marcus prepares to file his report through the analog network that now functions better than digital journalism ever did, he faces the most challenging question of his career. How do you report that humanity has been rescued from the unintended consequences of its own technological development by visitors who understand human needs better than humans do? Standing at the window of the ZDF building, looking out at a city that glows with more human activity and less electronic noise than it has in decades, Marcus realizes the story isn't about first contact. It's about humanity discovering what it could become when its environment is optimized for human flourishing rather than technological proliferation.
Monday morning reveals that the world has changed overnight in ways that make the previous week's transformations seem gradual. Marcus arrives at ZDF to find Klaus coordinating with an international network of journalists who are documenting what can only be described as a planetary upgrade happening in real time. Major cities across all continents are reporting the same phenomena, Klaus reports immediately. Infrastructure systems are integrating into coherent networks that span continental boundaries. Power grids are sharing load across thousands of kilometers. Transportation systems are coordinating internationally. Water treatment plants are achieving efficiency levels that violate our understanding of physics. The newsroom has evolved into something resembling a natural disaster response center, except they're documenting the opposite of disaster. Maps cover every surface, marked with color-coded pens showing optimization zones expanding outward from each artifact site. Radio operators coordinate with correspondents using frequencies that somehow remain clear despite electromagnetic interference elsewhere. The expansion rate is accelerating, Isabella explains, showing Marcus hand-drawn charts tracking the optimization zones. Initially, effects were limited to maybe 50 meters around each artifact. Now they're expanding for kilometers, and the boundaries are expanding exponentially. Marcus studies the data. If the pattern continues, entire metropolitan areas will be within optimization zones within days. Within weeks, most of human civilization will be operating under conditions designed and maintained by non-human intelligence. Any resistance? Military response? Klaus shakes his head grimly. That's what's most remarkable. Military systems within optimization zones function better than they ever have, but weapon systems become unreliable. Soldiers report feeling less aggressive, more cooperative. Command structures are becoming more democratic. It's like the artifacts enhance everything about human organization except the capacity for violence. The implications stagger Marcus. The visitors aren't just optimizing infrastructure, they're optimizing human behavior away from conflict and toward collaboration. Not through control, but by creating environmental conditions where cooperation becomes easier than competition. Marcus spends Monday morning in the expanding Frankfurt optimization zone, which now encompasses most of the city center. The transformation is visible everywhere. Traffic flows with mathematical precision despite the absence of digital traffic management. People navigate complex social interactions with patience and empathy that seems enhanced. Even the air seems cleaner, though no one can explain why. At Frankfurt University, he interviews Dr. Elizabeth Hoffman, the economist who's been tracking the systemic changes.
Her office, once cluttered with computer equipment, now centers around a large table covered with handwritten calculations and hand-drawn charts. We're witnessing the emergence of what I can only call optimal human economic behavior, she explains. Resource distribution is becoming more efficient without central planning. People are sharing more readily, hoarding less compulsively. Local economies are forming that operate with less waste and more satisfaction than any system we've previously documented. But surely there are negative effects, unintended consequences? That's what terrifies me, Dr. Hoffman admits. I keep looking for the downsides, the hidden costs, the trade-offs, but every metric I can measure suggests human civilization is simply improving in every measurable way. Marcus spends the afternoon documenting life in neighborhoods that have been under optimization influence for several days. What he finds challenges his understanding of human nature itself. Crime has virtually disappeared, not through enforcement, but through the absence of conditions that generate criminal behavior. Educational achievement is accelerating as children learn in environments that enhance rather than distract from cognitive development. Mental health indicators are improving at rates that should be impossible. But the most profound change is social. People are engaging with each other with depth and authenticity that digital communication never achieved. Conflict resolution happens naturally through face-to-face interaction. Communities are self-organizing into cooperative structures that function without formal authority or enforcement. It's like we're remembering how to be human, explained Anna Martinez, a social worker who lives near the original Frankfurt artifact site. Not changing into something different, but becoming what we were designed to be before we created environments that interfered with our natural social and cognitive functioning. Monday evening brings reports that force Marcus to confront the most unsettling question yet. What if the visitors are right? The optimization zones now cover major population centers across all inhabited continents. Infrastructure systems are operating at efficiency levels that exceed theoretical maximums. Human social and economic behavior is improving across all measurable dimensions. Environmental conditions are becoming healthier for both humans and ecosystems. If an advanced species can solve humanity's fundamental problems simply by optimizing the technological and electromagnetic environment, what does that say about human civilization's trajectory before their arrival? Klaus gathered the newsroom staff for an evening briefing that feels like a war council, except they're not planning to fight anyone. The question we need to address, he says, is whether we're documenting rescue or conquest, because if this continues, within a month, human civilization will be operating under conditions designed and maintained by non-human intelligence. That's either the best thing that ever happened to our species or the end of human independence. Can it be both? Marcus asks. The question hangs in the air without answer as reports continue flowing in through analog networks that now coordinate human information sharing better than digital systems ever did. Outside the newsroom windows, Frankfurt glows with human activity that seems more purposeful, more joyful, more connected than the city has been in living memory. The geometric forms still hang motionless in the sky, but they no longer seem alien. They seemed like gardeners, tending to a species that had forgotten how to thrive.
Tuesday brings the moment Marcus has been dreading and anticipating: direct communication from the visitors, not through technology, not through intermediaries, but through methods that bypassed human communication systems entirely. He arrives at ZDF to find Klaus in animated discussion with Dr. Sarah Chen, a linguist from Frankfurt University who was rushed to the station before dawn. On the table between them lies a series of photographs that change everything Marcus thought he understood about the past 10 days. These appeared overnight at artifact sites worldwide, Not projected, not carved, not printed. They simply materialized on surfaces near each artifact. Same images everywhere, simultaneously. Marcus examines the photographs. They show what appears to be a sequence of pictographs that combine mathematical symbols with representations of human activities. But these aren't crude drawings. They're precisely rendered images that convey complex information with startling clarity. What do they say? Dr. Chen leans forward, her excitement barely contained. They're not language in any sense we understand. They're direct conceptual transmission. Look at this sequence. She points to a series of images showing human figures in various activities. This shows human civilization as it was developing before our arrival. This shows the same civilization with optimization. And this, she indicates the final image, shows humans choosing their future path. The final image is the most complex. Human figures standing at what appears to be a crossroads with two paths extending in different directions. One path shows humans continuing with digital technology, but in harmony with optimized infrastructure. The other path shows humans embracing the analog social networks they've developed over the past week. They're asking us to choose, Marcus realizes. More than that, they're showing us that we can choose. The optimization process can continue with human digital technology integrated harmoniously, or we can maintain the analog alternatives we've developed. But the choice has to be made collectively as a species. Klaus shows Marcus additional reports from around the world. The pictographs appeared at artifact sites simultaneously, and human responses are remarkably consistent. Communities are gathering at artifact sites for discussions that last hours, sometimes days. Democratic processes are emerging spontaneously to address the species-level decision. How long do we have? Marcus asks. Unknown, but the pictographs suggest urgency. The optimization process is complete. Global infrastructure is now integrated and functioning at levels we never imagined possible. The visitors are waiting for our response before determining permanent configurations. Marcus spends Tuesday morning at the Frankfurt artifact site, which has become an impromptu assembly point for thousands of people engaging in the most significant democratic discussion in human history. The electromagnetic dead zone has expanded to encompass several city blocks, creating a space where human communication happens without digital interference. What he witnesses there challenges every assumption about human political capacity. Without digital media to fragment attention or amplify conflict, people are engaging in sustained, thoughtful discussion about civilization-level questions. Age groups collaborate across generational boundaries. Educational and economic differences dissolve in face-to-face conversation. Conflicts are resolved through patient dialogue rather than competitive argument. It's like watching democracy function the way it was supposed to work, observes Dr. Peter Schneider, the sociologist Marcus interviewed earlier. When human political discussion happens in optimal conditions, we're capable of collective wisdom that our digital political systems never achieved. The discussions focus on three fundamental questions. Do humans want to continue developing digital technology under optimized conditions? Do they want to maintain the analog social networks that have emerged over the past week? Can they integrate both approaches while preserving the improvements in human cooperation and environmental harmony? Marcus interviews participants throughout the day. Their responses reveal a species grappling with questions no civilization has ever faced. What do you do when you discover that your technological development has been suboptimal for your own flourishing? How do you respond when a more advanced species offers to solve your fundamental problems? What does independence mean when maintaining it might prevent optimal human development?
I keep thinking about my children, explains Maria Santos, the graphic designer who helped organize neighborhood resource networks. In the past week, they've learned more, played more creatively, and shown more empathy than I've seen in years. How do I choose to return to conditions that interfered with their development? But independence matters too, counters Thomas Bergman, who coordinated the analog network. Even if the visitors' solutions are better for us, we need to maintain our capacity to solve our own problems. Otherwise, we become permanently dependent on external optimization. As afternoon approaches, Marcus realizes he's witnessing something unprecedented. A species collectively deciding its own evolutionary direction to democratic deliberation enhanced by environmental conditions that optimize human decision-making capacity. The conversations continue without resolution, but with remarkable absence of the conflict and polarization that characterized human political discussions in the digital age. People disagree, but they listen. They advocate for positions, but they remain open to different perspectives. They face uncertainty, but they approach it with curiosity rather than fear. Tuesday evening brings reports that similar discussions are happening at artifact sites worldwide. Humanity is engaging in the first genuinely global conversation in its history, facilitated by conditions that enhance rather than degrade human communicative capacity. Standing at the edge of the Frankfurt Assembly as the sun sets, behind the geometric form still hanging motionless in the sky, Marcus faces the question that will define his final report. How do you document the moment when a species chooses its own future?
Wednesday morning brings Marcus to a realization that reframes everything he's witnessed over the past 9 days. This isn't a story about alien contact. It's about humanity discovering its own potential when environmental conditions support rather than interfere with human development. The ZDF newsroom has evolved into something resembling a documentary archive. Klaus coordinates with journalists worldwide through analog networks that now function with precision and reliability that digital systems never achieved. The picture emerging from these human-powered information networks reveals a species in the process of collective decision-making on a scale never before attempted. Reports from artifact sites across all continents, Klaus tells Marcus immediately. The discussions that began yesterday are reaching consensus with remarkable speed, not unanimity, genuine democratic consensus that preserves dissenting voices while identifying shared directions. Marcus reviews reports from correspondents at artifact sites across Europe. Each location tells the same story: human communities engaging in patient, thoughtful deliberation that addresses both immediate practical questions and long-term civilizational direction. What's the emerging consensus? Isabella Chan joins them with handwritten summaries from international correspondents. Integration with optimization. Communities worldwide are choosing to maintain both digital and analog systems, but under conditions that optimize human flourishing rather than technological proliferation. They want to keep the benefits of digital infrastructure while preserving the social networks and communication practices they've developed. And the visitors' response? That's the remarkable part, Klaus says. The artifacts began responding to local consensus as soon as communities reach decisions. Infrastructure optimization continues, but now it's incorporating human preferences and values. Digital systems are being restored, but in configurations that enhance rather than degrade human social and cognitive function. Marcus spends Wednesday morning documenting the integration process at artifact sites across Frankfurt. What he witnesses defies every narrative about technology, progress, and human development he's ever encountered. At the original Frankfurt site, digital systems are coming back online, but they function differently. Smartphones provide communication and information without the addictive interface designs that previously captured attention compulsively.
Internet connections offer access to information without the algorithmic manipulation that previously shaped behavior unconsciously. Social media platforms facilitate genuine social connection without the polarization and conflict that previously characterized online interaction. It's like having all the benefits of digital technology without any of the unintended negative consequences, explains Dr. Emma Fisher, the psychiatrist who lives near the artifact. The visitors have figured out how to integrate human technology with human biological and social needs. But the integration extends beyond individual devices. Infrastructure systems are coordinating with mathematical elegance while maintaining human accessibility and control. Transportation networks optimize efficiency while preserving individual choice about travel. Energy systems maximize sustainability while ensuring reliable availability. Economic networks facilitate resource distribution while supporting local community autonomy. Marcus interviews residents who are experiencing the integration process firsthand. Their responses revealed humans adapting to technological environments designed to enhance rather than interfere with human capabilities. My attention span has returned, explains Joseph Krause, the market vendor who became a focal point for local resource networks. I can focus on tasks for hours without digital distraction, but I also have access to information when I need it. The technology serves human purposes rather than commercial manipulation. My children are learning faster than I thought possible, adds Anna Martinez, the social worker. Technological education that enhances natural learning processes instead of replacing them. They're developing both digital literacy and the face-to-face social skills that the previous digital environment disrupted. Wednesday afternoon brings Marcus to the most significant interview of his career. Dr. Maria Santos approaches him at the Frankfurt Artifact site with a request that changes his understanding of his role as a journalist. She says, "We want you to document the message we're sending to the visitors. The consensus we've reached includes gratitude for the intervention, but also a request for ongoing partnership rather than dependent optimization." Partnership? We want to learn from them, not just benefit from their solutions, but understand their methods so we can continue developing in directions that optimize human flourishing. We don't want to be permanently dependent on external optimization. We want to become capable of optimizing our own development. The message that emerges from the Frankfurt community and similar messages from artifact sites worldwide represents humanity's response to the most significant challenge any species has ever faced. How do you respond when a more advanced civilization offers to solve your fundamental problems? The human answer proves to be characteristically complex and optimistic. Accept the assistance, learn from the methods, and develop the capacity to continue the optimization process independently. Wednesday evening brings confirmation that the visitors have received and accepted humanity's response. The artifacts begin a new phase of activity, not just optimizing existing systems, but teaching humans to understand and continue the optimization processes themselves. As Marcus prepares his final report, he realizes he's been documenting not invasion or rescue, but education. The visitors came not to conquer or control, but to demonstrate what human civilization could become when technological development served human flourishing rather than compromising it. Standing in the Frankfurt Artifact Zone as the sun sets on the 9th day since the visitors arrived, Marcus faces the most challenging question of his career. How do you report the end of one stage of human development and the beginning of another?
Thursday morning brings Marcus to the most extraordinary assignment of his career, documenting humanity's first lessons in civilizational optimization from teachers who understand the science of species development better than humans understand their own biology. The ZDF newsroom has transformed into a coordination center for the largest educational initiative in human history.
Klaus manages communications with journalists at artifact sites across the globe, all documenting the same phenomena. The visitors have begun actively teaching humans the principles and methods behind the optimization process. Reports from every artifact site worldwide, Klaus tells Marcus immediately. The teaching process began simultaneously at dawn, local time, everywhere. Not language instruction, not technological training, direct conceptual transmission about the science of civilizational development. Marcus examines the latest pictographs that appeared overnight at artifact sites globally. These images are more complex than previous communications, showing detailed diagrams of how electromagnetic environments affect human cognitive function, how infrastructure design influences social behavior, how technological interfaces shape psychological development. They're teaching us to see our own species from their perspective, Isabella observes, studying translations that Dr. Chen has been working on since before dawn. How human biology interacts with artificial environments, how social structures emerge from technological conditions, how civilizational choices create evolutionary pressures. The teaching method defies every human educational model. Marcus spends Thursday morning at the Frankfurt artifact site, where hundreds of people gather not to receive lectures or read materials, but to participate in direct conceptual transmission that bypasses language entirely. Participants report understanding complex scientific principles about human development that would normally require years of specialized study. It's like having access to a comprehensive science of human flourishing, explains Dr. Elizabeth Hoffman, the economist who's been documenting civilizational changes. I understand now why our economic systems generated the problems they did, how technological design affects social behavior, what environmental conditions optimize different aspects of human development. How does it feel to receive this information? Natural, like remembering something I once knew but had forgotten. The visitors aren't imposing alien concepts, they're helping us understand principles that govern how our own species functions optimally. Marcus interviews participants throughout the day. Each person describes the same experience, gaining comprehensive understanding of how human civilization can develop in directions that enhance rather than compromise human potential. The knowledge is an abstract theory, it's practical understanding of how to design technologies, organize communities, and structure economic systems that optimize human flourishing. I understand now why the digital technology we developed created addiction and social fragmentation. The interfaces were designed for commercial manipulation rather than human well-being. But I also understand how to design digital systems that enhance human capabilities instead of exploiting them. And you trust this knowledge. I can verify it through observation. I can see how the optimized systems work, how they affect human behavior, what outcomes they produce. The teaching includes methods for evaluating and improving the optimization processes ourselves. Thursday afternoon brings reports that the teaching process is accelerating human development at unprecedented rates. Communities near artifact sites are beginning to implement optimization principles in their own technological and social systems. Educational methods are evolving to enhance natural learning processes. Economic structures are reorganizing to maximize both efficiency and human satisfaction. Governance systems are becoming more democratic and more effective simultaneously. But the most significant development is psychological. Humans receiving the optimization education report profound shifts in self-understanding and species perspective. They see humanity not as the apex of evolution, but as a young species learning to navigate the complexities of technological development. It's humbling and empowering simultaneously.
explains Dr. Sarah Chen, the linguist who has been translating visitor communications. Humbling to realize how much we didn't understand about our own development. Empowering to discover that we're capable of much more sophisticated civilization than we achieved independently. Marcus spends Thursday evening documenting the emergence of human communities that are beginning to function according to optimization principles learned from the visitors. These communities maintain individual freedom and cultural diversity while achieving levels of cooperation, creativity, and contentment that previous human societies never sustained. We're not becoming less human, observes Maria Santos, whose neighborhood has been implementing optimization principles in their resource-sharing networks. We're becoming more fully human, more capable of the cooperation, creativity, and compassion that humans demonstrate at their best, but now as consistent community characteristics rather than exceptional individual achievements. As night falls on the 10th day since the visitors arrived, Marcus realizes he's documenting the most significant educational exchange in history. Not just first contact between species, but mentorship from an advanced civilization that understands how to guide species development without compromising independence or diversity. The geometric forms still hang motionless in the sky above Frankfurt, but they no longer seem mysterious. They seem like teachers, waiting patiently while their students learn to build civilizations that optimize the flourishing of all inhabitants. Standing in the artifact zone, where hundreds of humans continue learning principles of civilization optimization deep into the night, Marcus faces the question that will shape his final report. How do you document the moment when humanity begins learning to fulfill its own potential?
Friday morning brings Marcus to the realization that he's been documenting not just first contact, but humanity's graduation into a larger community of intelligent species that have learned to optimize civilizational development. The story that began with mysterious objects in the sky has become the chronicle of humanity's accelerated maturation as a technological species. The ZDF newsroom operates now with a blend of analog and digital systems that exemplifies the synthesis emerging worldwide. Klaus coordinates with correspondents using optimized digital networks that enhance rather than degrade human communication, while maintaining the face-to-face collaborative practices that emerged during the digital disruption period. Global update from all artifact sites, Klaus reports. The teaching phase is transitioning into collaborative implementation. Human communities are beginning to design and build optimization systems using principles learned from the visitors but adapted to local, cultural, and environmental conditions. Marcus reviews reports from correspondents across Europe. Each location shows the same pattern: humans taking increasingly active roles in civilizational optimization, while the visitors gradually reduce their direct intervention. The artifacts continue providing guidance and support, but human communities are becoming the primary agents of their own development. It's like watching a species learn to walk independently, Isabella observes, studying implementation reports from Frankfurt neighborhoods. The visitors provided the fundamental principles and initial demonstration, but humans are developing their own applications and innovations. Marcus spends Friday morning documenting the collaborative optimization projects that are emerging throughout Frankfurt. At the university, students and faculty are designing educational systems that enhance natural learning processes while maintaining academic rigor and intellectual diversity. In business districts, organizations are restructuring to maximize both productivity and worker satisfaction, using optimization principles to resolve the traditional tension between efficiency and human well-being. The most remarkable developments are in governments. Communities across the city are implementing democratic processes that harness collective wisdom more effectively than any previous political system. Decision-making remains fully human, but environmental and technological conditions now support rather than degrade human democratic capacity. We're discovering that humans are capable of much more sophisticated self-governments than our previous systems allowed, explains Dr. Peter Schneider, the sociologist who's been documenting social transformations. The optimization principles don't change human nature, they create conditions where human nature can express its highest capabilities. Marcus interviews participants in the collaborative optimization projects. Their responses reveal humans who are more confident, more creative, and more cooperative than the individuals he interviewed just days ago, not because they've been changed by alien intervention, but because they're functioning in environments designed to support rather than interfere with human potential. I feel like I'm finally thinking clearly for the first time in years, explains Anna Martinez, who's helping design community resource sharing systems. Not because the visitors changed my brain, but because I'm not constantly fighting environmental conditions that interfered with natural cognitive function. And you're not concerned about dependency on alien technology? We're not dependent, we're educated. I understand the principles behind optimization well enough to continue developing and improving these systems ourselves. The visitors gave us knowledge, not dependence. Friday afternoon brings Marcus to the most significant interview of his assignment. The artifact sites worldwide have begun transmitting a new series of pictographs, the most complex communications yet received from the visitors. Dr. Sarah Chen has been working to understand these latest messages, which appear to be transitional communications as the visitors prepare for the next phase of contact. These images show the broader galactic context, she explains, displaying photographs of pictographs that depict multiple star systems with inhabited planets. The visitors are showing us that this optimization process is how intelligent species mature into stable, sustainable civilizations. We're not their first students. How many species have they taught? The pictographs suggest hundreds of species across thousands of years. This is their purpose, helping younger species navigate the critical transition from destructive to constructive technological development. The implications overwhelm Marcus. Humanity has been contacted not by conquerors or even explorers, but by teachers who specialize in helping species develop sustainable civilizations. The past 11 days represent humanity's enrollment in a galactic educational program for civilizational development. And the next phase? Integration into what they're showing as a community of mature species. Not political integration, civilizational integration, sharing knowledge, resources, and collaborative projects with other species that have completed the optimization process. Friday afternoon brings reports that the optimization teaching is nearing completion at artifact sites worldwide. Human communities have learned to design and implement their own optimization systems. Infrastructure continues improving, but now under human direction, using visitor-taught principles. Social and economic systems are evolving toward configurations that maximize both individual fulfillment and collective flourishing. But the most profound change is psychological. Marcus interviews people throughout Frankfurt who describe feeling like they're finally living up to their potential as human beings, not because they've been enhanced by alien technology, but because they're functioning in conditions that support rather than degrade human capabilities. We're still completely human, explains Josef Kraus, whose market has become a model of optimized economic organization. But we're human under conditions that allow us to be our best selves consistently, rather than struggling against environments that brought out our worst tendencies. As Marcus prepares his final reports on humanity's first contact with galactic civilization, he realizes he's been documenting not invasion or rescue, but education. The most successful educational program in human history, conducted by teachers who understand the science of species development better than humans understood their own potential. Standing in the Frankfurt artifact zone as the sun sets on the 11th day since the visitors arrived, Marcus faces the question that will define his legacy as a journalist. How do you document the moment when humanity discovers its place in a universe full of intelligent species committed to helping each other flourish?
Saturday morning brings Marcus to the most bittersweet assignment of his career, documenting humanity's graduation from direct tutorship into independent civilizational optimization. The visitors are preparing to leave, not because their mission has failed, but because it has succeeded beyond every historical precedent. The ZDF newsroom operates with the seamless efficiency that now characterizes human institutions worldwide. Analog and digital systems integrated to enhance rather than replace human capabilities. Democratic coordination that harnesses collective wisdom. Resource distribution that maximizes both efficiency and satisfaction. Claus manages global correspondence through networks that function better than any communication system humanity ever developed independently. Final reports from all artifact sites, Claus tells Marcus with a mixture of excitement and melancholy. The departure sequence began at dawn worldwide. Artifacts are transitioning into permanent consultation mode, available for guidance but no longer actively intervening in human development. Marcus examines the latest pictographs which show the transition from active teaching to ongoing mentorship. The images depict human communities confidently implementing optimization principles, with visitor assistance available but not essential for continued progress. They're confident we can continue without direct supervision, Isabella observes. After 11 days of intensive education, they consider humanity ready for independent civilizational optimization. The departure process reveals the extraordinary scope of what has been accomplished. Marcus spends Saturday morning documenting human communities that are functioning at levels of cooperation, creativity, and contentment that would have been considered utopian just 2 weeks ago. Educational systems that enhance natural learning, economic structures that optimize both productivity and human satisfaction, governance processes that harness collective wisdom without suppressing individual diversity. But the most remarkable achievement is psychological. Humans worldwide report feeling more capable, more confident, and more connected to their communities than previous generations ever experienced. Not because they've been enhanced by alien technology, but because they're finally functioning in environments designed to support human flourishing. It's like we've remembered who we really are, explains Dr. Emma Fisher, whose neighborhood has become a model of optimized community organization. Not changed into something different, but grown into what we were always capable of becoming. Marcus interviews participants in the optimization projects that will continue after the visitor's departure. Their responses reveal humans who are prepared to continue developing their civilization using principles they've learned, but adapted to their own cultural values and creative vision. We understand the science now.
explains Thomas Bergman, who's coordinating infrastructure optimization across Frankfurt. How technological design affects social behavior, how environmental conditions influence psychological development, how economic structures can enhance rather than compromise human cooperation. We can continue improving these systems ourselves. And you're not concerned about losing visitor guidance? They're not abandoning us. The artifacts will remain available for consultation, and they've indicated they'll return periodically to assess our progress and provide advanced guidance. But we've learned enough to continue developing independently. Saturday afternoon brings Marcus to the most emotional interviews of his assignment. Families whose children have grown up during the optimization process describe profound changes in human development that will shape generations to come. My children have learned to think more clearly, cooperate more naturally, and create more imaginatively than any previous generation. Not because they've been altered, but because they've developed in environments that support rather than interfere with natural human capabilities. They're becoming the humans our species was designed to become. The educational achievements are remarkable. Children learning faster and retaining information better than any previous generation. Adolescents developing emotional regulation and social skills that typically require years of adult experience. Young adults demonstrating creativity and collaborative capacity that previous educational systems never fostered. But the changes extend beyond individual development. Communities worldwide are implementing social and economic structures that older generations never imagined possible. High levels of individual freedom combined with effective collective coordination. Economic prosperity that doesn't require environmental degradation. Technological advancement that enhance rather than replace human capabilities. Saturday evening brings the final phase of departure preparation. The geometric forms that have hung motionless above human cities for 11 days begin moving for the first time, not departing yet, but repositioning themselves for the transition to ongoing consultation mode. Marcus gathers with thousands of Frankfurt residents in the artifact zone for what everyone understands will be the final direct communication from their teachers. The pictographs that appear are simpler than previous messages, but more profound. Images showing human communities continuing to flourish and develop long after the intensive teaching period ends. The message is clear. Humanity has learned enough to continue the optimization process independently. The visitor's confidence in human potential has been validated by human achievement during the most intensive educational program any species has ever received. As night falls on the 12th day since the visitors arrived, Marcus realizes he's documenting not an ending, but a commencement. Humanity is graduating into independent membership in a galactic community of species that have learned to optimize their own development. Standing in the Frankfurt artifact zone surrounded by thousands of humans who are more capable, more confident, and more connected than any previous generation, Marcus faces the question that will conclude his chronicle. How do you document the moment when humanity discovers it's ready to continue its own education?
Sunday morning brings Marcus to his final report on the most transformative event in human history. The visitors are departing, not as conquerors, leaving behind a subjugated population, but as teachers whose students have proven ready for independent, advanced study.
The geometric forms that had defined Frankfurt's skyline for 12 days are rising slowly, gracefully, returning to the higher altitudes where they first appeared. But they leave behind a world that has been fundamentally transformed. Not by alien intervention, but by human potential, finally supported by environmental conditions designed for human flourishing. Marcus walks through Frankfurt streets that pulse with activity more vibrant than the city has ever known. People engage in conversations deeper than digital communication ever facilitated. Children play games more creative than screen-based entertainment ever provided. Adults collaborate on projects more ambitious than competitive economic systems ever encouraged. The artifacts remain embedded at infrastructure nodes worldwide, but their role has shifted from active optimization to consultative support. Human communities now direct their own development using principles learned from teachers who understood the science of species maturation better than humans understood their own capabilities. At ZDF, Klaus coordinates the final global reports from correspondents who have documented humanity's most remarkable educational experience. The newsroom operates with the hybrid efficiency that now characterizes human institutions everywhere. Digital systems that enhance rather than replace human capabilities. Analog backup systems that ensure resilience, collaborative processes that harness collective wisdom while preserving individual creativity. Final summary from all continents, Klaus reports. Human communities worldwide are successfully implementing independent optimization programs. Infrastructure systems continue improving under human direction. Social and economic structures are evolving toward higher levels of both individual satisfaction and collective coordination. Educational systems are producing generations with capabilities that exceed anything previously achieved. Marcus reviews the comprehensive documentation of humanity's transformation. In 12 days, human civilization has learned to function at levels of cooperation, creativity, and sustainability that could have required centuries of independent development if such development had been possible at all, without guidance from species that understood the principles of civilizational optimization. But the most profound transformation is psychological. Reports from across the globe describe humans who feel more capable, more confident, and more connected than any previous generation. Not because they've been enhanced by alien technology, but because they're finally functioning in conditions that support rather than interfere with human potential. We're still completely human, Marcus writes in his final report. But we're human under conditions that allow our species to express its highest capabilities consistently, rather than struggling against environmental factors that prevented optimal human development. The economic data reveals transformations that economists previously considered impossible. High productivity combined with meaningful work. Efficient resource distribution that doesn't require competitive scarcity. Technological advancement that enhances rather than replaces human capabilities. Communities worldwide have learned to organize economic activities that maximize both individual fulfillment and collective prosperity. Educational achievements exceed every historical precedent. Children learning faster and more comprehensively than any previous generation. Adults developing new capabilities throughout their lifespans rather than peaking in early adulthood. Communities creating and sharing knowledge at rates that accelerate rather than diminish with population growth. But perhaps most remarkably,
governance systems are evolving toward configurations that previous political theorists considered utopian. High levels of individual freedom combined with effective collective coordination. Democratic processes that harness collective wisdom without suppressing minority perspectives. Conflict resolution methods that address root causes rather than managing symptoms. As Marcus prepares his final broadcast through communication networks that now function with reliability and clarity that digital systems never achieved, he reflects on the question that has shaped his reporting. What does it mean for humanity to discover that its potential exceeds everything it previously imagined possible? The geometric forms continue rising above Frankfurt, their impossible surfaces reflecting afternoon sunlight in ways that no longer hurt to observe directly. They're not departing, they're transitioning to the background role that teachers assume when students are ready for independent, advanced work. Marcus concludes his final report standing in the Frankfurt artifact zone, surrounded by thousands of humans who are engaged in activities more creative, more collaborative, and more constructive than any previous generation ever sustained. Children learning through play that develops both individual capabilities and social cooperation. Adults working on projects that enhance both personal fulfillment and community prosperity. Elderly citizens sharing wisdom that integrates individual experience with collective knowledge. The visitors came not as conquerors or saviors, but as teachers who understood that humanity's greatest need was not rescue from external threats, but education about its own potential. They leave behind a species that has learned to create conditions for its own flourishing, not by becoming less human, but by becoming more fully human than previous generations ever achieved. The sun sets on Frankfurt as the geometric forms fade into the distance, still visible but no longer dominant in the sky. Tomorrow will bring the first day of humanity's independent advanced study and civilizational optimization, the beginning of an educational journey that will continue for generations, guided by principles learned from teachers who understood the science of species development better than humans understood their own capabilities. Standing in the artifact zone as darkness falls on the 13th day since the visitors arrived, Marcus faces the question that will define humanity's future. What will humans accomplish now that they've learned to create conditions that support rather than interfere with their own potential? The answer, he realizes, will be written by every human who chooses to continue the education the visitors began, an education in becoming the species humanity was always capable of being.